The night was colder than usual, and 2 moons hung above the alien sky. Wind moved across the silent fields, carrying the smell of strange crops glowing with soft blue light. A young human girl moved like a shadow between the tall plants, her thin hands shaking as she clutched an empty sack. Her stomach had not known food for 3 days, and the taste of hunger was sharp in her throat. She whispered to herself, "Just a little food, only enough to live one more day." The fields belonged to the Kareth, tall alien masters with skin like stone and eyes that glowed in the dark. They ruled the land, and humans worked as slaves, or died as beggars. Everyone knew stealing from them was death, but still, the girl crept forward, her bare feet pressed against the strange soil, careful not to make a sound. Every shadow was a threat. Every rustle in the plants made her freeze. She saw the barn, a great building of metal and glass, full of food taken from Earth and other worlds. Her heart pounded so hard it felt louder than her steps. She reached the wall and pressed her hand against the cold surface. With quick fingers she found a loose panel, a secret she had learned by watching from far away. Slipping inside, she entered a place of warmth and light, the smell of bread and fruit filling her nose. Tears almost came to her eyes. Rows of alien food shone in strange colors, but some were human crops of wheat, corn, apples. She ran to them and filled her sack, her hands trembling, her lips whispering thanks to no one. But before she could leave, a deep voice echoed through the barn. "Did you think the Kareth do not watch their treasures?" The girl froze. From the shadows stepped a Kareth landowner taller than any man, his skin gray like steel, his eyes burning gold. He wore no armor, yet his presence was heavier than chains. Everyone in the human quarter spoke his name with fear. He was Varric, the silent master of the southern fields. No one had ever stolen from him and lived. The girl dropped the sack, her body shaking. She wanted to run, but her legs were stone. Varric's steps were slow, his voice calm like a judge. At the edge of a grave, "You steal from me, little human," he said. "The punishment is death, yet you look at me with empty eyes, as if death is already inside you." Her lips opened before her mind could think. "I stole to survive," she whispered. "Kill me if you want, but I have nothing else to give." She lifted her head, her voice breaking but strong in its madness. "I will work your fields by day, I will warm you by night. That is my only offer." The barn was silent, the air heavy. Varric stared at her, and for a moment his golden eyes narrowed as if measuring the weight of her words. The offer was shameless, desperate, yet it carried something strange. Courage or madness humans usually begged. They cried, they crawled. But this girl stood shaking yet unbroken. Varric walked closer until his shadow fell over her. She could smell the iron of his skin, feel the heat of his alien body. He lifted the sack of stolen food with one hand and looked down at her. "You should be ash for this crime," he said slowly. "But perhaps ash is too easy for you." The girl's heart raced, her throat dry. Every second was a knife, every breath a battle. Would he strike her now, end her life like a broken toy? Or would he accept the offer she had thrown like a stone into the dark? He lowered the sack, placed it in her hands, and said words she never expected. "Work my fields by day, stay in my house by night. If you try to run, death will be faster than the wind." The girl nodded, her voice lost, her heart still racing. She had traded freedom for survival, but in her chest burned a question she dared not speak. Why did Varric, the feared master, spare her at all? As the night closed around the farm, the girl followed him into the unknown. Every step she took was heavy with fear. Every shadow seemed alive. Somewhere in the distance, whispers moved in the dark, voices of other humans saying. She made a deal with the master, she sold her soul, but in her heart, the girl knew this was only the beginning. The theft was not her greatest crime, nor her last. Something greater was waiting in the fields, something that would test not only her body but her soul. Morning came with 2 suns rising over the alien sky, their light sharp and merciless. The girl, still weak from hunger, stood in the wide fields of the Kareth master. Rows of glowing crops stretched to the horizon, strange plants humming with quiet life. Her hands shook as she picked up the heavy, alien tools. Tools larger than her arms. Varric, the master, stood watching from a distance, his golden eyes fixed on her every move. She was no longer a thief, yet chains of a different kind wrapped around her. Not iron, but a promise she had made, to work his fields by day and stay in his house by night. Every human whispered her name now, but not with respect. They called her traitor, slave lover, a girl who had sold her soul to survive. Their stares burned worse than the sun's, but she kept her head down. The fields were endless, each plant carrying energy that fed the alien empire. The work broke her back, blistered her hands, and left her breathless. Still she worked until the skin tore on her palms. Varric gave no words of comfort, only orders spoken in his deep voice. Faster, human. These fields do not wait for your weakness. At night, the farmhouse was silent. She slept in a small corner near the fire, close enough to the master's chambers that no one dared harm her. The air was thick with mistrust. Servants, alien and human, looked at her with hate, their whispers sharp like knives. They believed she had been chosen for pleasure, though no such act had yet taken place. The truth was stranger. Varric did not touch her, not even once. He only watched her, studied her as if waiting for something hidden inside her to appear. She felt like a prisoner under his gaze, yet she also felt safer than in the streets. No one dared attack her when he was near. No one dared starve her anymore. One evening, when the suns dipped and the sky turned blood red, she found herself alone in the fields, the others gone early. Her hands brushed against a strange device hidden under the soil, a small machine half broken, glowing faintly with red light. When she leaned closer, she heard whispers, voices not her own. "Rise, humans," the voices said. "The rebellion is near. The masters will fall." Her breath caught, and she dropped. The machine, her heart pounding like thunder, she looked around. No one was there, only the endless crops and the silent wind. But the words stayed inside her mind, sharp and dangerous. If the Kareth found out she had touched this device, death would come quickly. That night she hid the memory deep in her chest. Varric asked nothing, only studied her again with his burning eyes. She wondered if he already knew, if he could see. The fear shaking her bones. Why had he spared her in the barn? Why did he keep her alive now? The questions grew heavier than the work itself. Days passed and the pattern of her new life set in. Work in the burning suns, silence in the farmhouse, whispers from humans who hated her. But every night, as she lay near the fire, she could feel Varric's presence beyond the wall. It was not comfort, but not pure fear either. It was something between, a chain that bound them both, though neither spoke of it. One night, thunder broke across the sky. She woke to the sound of heavy boots and alien voices outside the farmhouse. Soldiers had come, their armor glowing, their weapons humming with deadly power. Varric stepped out to meet them, his voice low but strong. The girl hid behind the door, listening, her body cold with fear. "Traitors walk among your kind," the soldier leader said. "Machines have been found in the fields. Rebellion whispers in the dark." Varric's golden eyes flickered, but his voice was calm. "Not in my land," he replied. "My humans are broken. They have no strength to rise." The soldiers searched anyway, storming through barns, pulling humans from their beds. Screams filled the night, the sound of chains clashing. The girl pressed her hand to her chest, remembering the device she had touched. Was it still in the field? Had someone else found it? If the soldiers discovered it, she would be blamed. Her life would end before the next sunrise. But then, as the soldiers left, finding nothing, Varric's eyes turned to her. For one terrible moment she thought he knew, that he had seen into her very soul. He said nothing, only stared, and then walked away into the darkness. Her breath shook in her throat, her body trembling. She realized she was not only bound to him by her deal, she was now bound by a secret that could burn the world around her, and in the silence of that night one truth became clear. Her survival was no longer only about hunger. It was about hiding the storm that was rising beneath the alien suns. The nights on Kareth lands were never truly quiet. Strange winds moved through the alien fields, carrying whispers that sounded almost like voices. The girl often lay awake by the fire, listening, wondering if the land itself was speaking to her. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound felt like a secret she was not meant to hear. By day, her hands bled in the fields, her back bent under the heavy alien tools, but her ears caught fragments of hushed talk between workers. Humans spoke only when they thought no alien eyes were watching. They said words that carried danger, words like freedom and rebellion. When she drew near, they turned away. Their mouths shut tight. To them, she was the master's pet, the girl who had bargained her soul. One evening, as the sun sank and the fields glowed blue in the twilight, she was alone when she heard the whisper again, louder than before. "Rise, humans, the night belongs to you." The words seemed to come from the soil itself, carried on the hum of the crops. She dropped her tools, her heart hammering in her chest. She pressed her ear to the earth and felt a faint vibration, as if something far below was alive. Suddenly a hand gripped her shoulder and she spun around. It was another human worker, his face thin, his eyes sharp with suspicion. "You heard it, didn't you?" he hissed. "Don't pretend. I saw your face." She shook her head, fear twisting her stomach, but the man only sneered. "You think we don't know? You live in his house, you eat his food, but the rebellion is coming and you'll have to choose." Before she could answer, footsteps thundered nearby. The man vanished into the rows of crops like smoke, leaving her shaking in the dark. Moments later, Varric appeared, silent as stone, his golden eyes burning in the twilight. "You work late," he said, his voice flat, unreadable. Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to nod. "Yes, master," she whispered, hiding the storm in her chest. That night, sleep would not come. The farmhouse was too quiet, the silence too heavy. She sat by the fire, staring into the flames when she felt it, a pair of eyes watching her. Varric stood in the doorway, not speaking, only watching. It was as if he could sense something inside her, some secret she had no power to hide. Her body tensed, her throat dry, but he turned away without a word, vanishing back into the dark. The days grew heavier, filled with tension she could not explain. The humans whispered more boldly now, their eyes flashing with a dangerous fire. They spoke of stolen weapons, of signals hidden in the soil, of allies waiting beyond the mountains. The girl kept her head low, but the whispers clung to her like shadows. Every word she heard was a knife, too sharp to ignore, too deadly to speak aloud. Then came the night of the broken sky. A storm ripped across the land, red lightning tearing through the air. The humans were gathered in the barns, pretending to hide from the storm, but their whispers rose like a tide. Through cracks in the wood, she heard them speak names she did not know, names of leaders, names of battles yet to come. And then she heard her own name, spoken like poison. "She lives in his house," one voice spat. "She sleeps under his roof," said another. "She will betray us if we let her live." Her heart froze, her breath shallow. She pressed her hand over her mouth to stop the sound of fear escaping. In that moment she knew, the humans hated her as much as the aliens. She belonged nowhere, trapped between two worlds that wanted her blood. When the storm passed, she slipped back into the farmhouse, her body trembling. Varric was waiting inside, his eyes unreadable as always. "Why do you shake?" he asked, his voice quiet. She could not answer, not without betraying someone, so she bowed her head and whispered, "The storm frightened me." But she knew he did not believe her. That night she dreamed of fire and chains, of humans rising and aliens falling. She woke with her heart racing, sweat on her face. The farmhouse was still, the fields outside silent, but she felt the weight of something coming, like a wave building in the distance, ready to crash and sweep her away. And then, in the final hours before dawn, she heard it again. The whisper, clearer than ever, moving through the walls of the house itself. "Rise, humans. The night belongs to you." She sat frozen by the fire, her body cold, her mind spinning. For the first time, she realized the voice was not only in the soil, it was in her, calling her, binding her to the rebellion whether she wished it or not. Her chest tightened with fear, but also with something else. A spark. A dangerous spark that no hunger, no chain, and no master could ever crush. The night began with fear, and fear turned quickly into chaos. Alien soldiers stormed across the farmland, their boots heavy, their armor glowing under the light of the moons. They searched for traitors, for rebels, for anyone hiding secrets. The barns shook with their voices. The humans trembled in silence, and the girl knew her secret. The whispers, the device, the rebellion was one breath away from being discovered. She crouched near the farmhouse door, her chest rising and falling fast. The soldiers shouted commands in a harsh alien tongue, their lights slicing through the fields. Every second felt like a blade pressed against her throat. If they came inside, if they searched the house, she would not survive the night. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder, strong, heavy, unshakable. She turned and saw Varric, the master, his golden eyes glowing like fire in the dark. Without a word, he pulled her close and guided her into a hidden room behind the hearth. The walls were thick stone, the air hot from the fire above. There was no space to move. They were pressed, close, human and alien, shadows breathing the same air. She could hear his heartbeat, slow and steady, while hers raced like a frightened bird. The sound of soldiers grew louder, boots striking the floorboards above them. Voices demanded, "Search everything. Rebels hide even in the cracks of walls." The girl closed her eyes, praying the soldiers would not hear her breath. But Varric's arm pressed against her chest, holding her still, forcing her into silence. Minutes felt like hours, the air heavy, her throat dry. She dared not move, dared not look up. Yet in the heat of that moment, she felt something she did not expect. Safety, not freedom, not trust, but the strange safety of being shielded by the very creature she feared most. She wondered if he felt it too, or if she was only a tool in his game. At last the soldiers left, their voices fading into the night. The door above slammed, and silence returned. Varric moved first, pushing the stone aside, letting the cool air in. She stumbled out, her knees weak, her chest still burning from holding her breath. But before she could speak, his voice cut through the silence. "You hide fear, poorly human," he said, his tone calm but sharp. Her lips trembled, but she lifted her head. "I was not the only one afraid tonight," she whispered. For the first time, his golden eyes flickered with something. Not anger, not contempt, but a shadow she could not name. That night she sat by the fire again, but her thoughts were restless. The memory of his arm across her chest, the heat of his body shielding hers, stayed in her mind. She hated it, yet she could not let it go. He was her captor, her master, the one who had spared her life only to chain it. And yet, for those long minutes in the dark, he had been the wall between her and death. The days that followed were no easier. Humans glared at her with sharper hate, their whispers louder now. "She hides in his house," they spat. "She is his shield, his slave, his pet." Even the children turned away when she passed. She belonged nowhere, rejected by her own kind, mistrusted by the aliens. Only Varric's silent gaze tied her to the land. But something else began to change. One evening, as she carried water back from the well, she saw him working alone in the fields. No alien lord ever touched the soil. Yet there he was, repairing the broken machines with his massive hands. She watched in silence, hidden among the crops, and for the first time she wondered if his power was as unshakable as it seemed. Why would a master soil his own hands if not to hide weakness? That night she found courage she did not know she had. "Why did you spare me in the barn?" she asked him softly, her voice almost breaking. Varric looked at her for a long time before answering. "You were already dead," he said. "But you looked at me without crawling, without begging, and I wanted to see how long that fire could last." His words cut deeper than chains. She was alive not because of mercy, but because she was an experiment, a question he wanted answered. Still, in the silence that followed, she felt the bond between them grow heavier. Not love, not trust, but a bond forged by fear, defiance, and secrets. a bond she could not escape no matter how hard she tried. Late one night the whispers returned, stronger than ever. "Rise, humans. The night belongs to you." She jolted awake, her breath sharp, her skin cold. The voice was inside her, burning through her chest. But this time, when she looked up, Varric was standing in the doorway, watching. His golden eyes narrowed as if he too had heard the whisper. The fire cracked, the silence thick. For the first time she wondered if he was not her jailer, but another prisoner of the same storm, and if so, what force was truly binding them together in the dark. The sky turned black before the suns were gone. Thunder roared across the land, red lightning tearing the heavens apart. Rain fell like blades, heavy and sharp, slashing the glowing crops. The fields drowned under the storm, and the barns shook like they would break. Humans and aliens alike ran for cover, fear written on every face. The girl stood in the doorway of the farmhouse, her hair plastered to her face. She watched the storm rip apart the fields she had bled to work. Every drop of rain felt like a curse, every thunderclap like the cry of something ancient. Behind her, Varric moved silently, his eyes reflecting the fire in the sky. He said nothing, only watched as the world outside bent under nature's fury. But it was not only the storm that shook the land that night. In the barns, humans gathered together, their voices low but burning with anger. They spoke her name again, sharper than the lightning. "She is not one of us," they spat. "She eats while we starve, she sleeps under his roof. She will betray us when the time comes," another hissed. The words cut through her heart even though she was not there to hear them. The storm forced everyone to stay close. Humans huddled in corners, aliens guarded the gates. But the whispers did not stop. They grew louder, stronger, like the storm itself. When she entered the barn to carry food, silence fell. Dozens of eyes turned to her, filled with hatred sharper than knives. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to step forward. Then one of the men stood, his face twisted with rage. "You," he growled, pointing at her. "You are the master's dog. You take his protection, you warm his house while we suffer." She shook her head, her voice breaking. "I suffer too," she whispered. "You do not see it, but I carry chains you cannot see." The man spat at her feet, his voice like thunder. "You chose your chains, we were born into ours," the others muttered, their voices rising like a storm within the barn. "Traitor, slave, spy." The girl's chest tightened, her throat dry. She wanted to scream that she had no choice, that she had stolen only to live, but her voice would not rise above their hatred. Her eyes burned with tears, but she would not let them fall. Then through the crack of thunder a boy's voice spoke, small but strong. "She saved me once," the boy said, stepping forward. "When I was hungry, she gave me bread." The crowd stilled, eyes flickering with doubt. But the man growled, again his anger unshaken. "One act of pity does not erase betrayal. When the rebellion comes, she will stand against us." The girl backed away, her heart racing. She could feel the storm pressing through the walls, shaking the barn. In that moment, she knew no matter what she did, she would never belong to them. To the humans, she was already lost. To the aliens, she was never truly trusted. Alone, caught between fire and shadow, she was a prisoner of both. That night, as the storm raged on, she returned to the farmhouse. Her steps heavy, Varric stood at the window, the golden fire of his eyes reflecting the lightning. "You were with them," he said, though his voice was calm. She lowered her head, unable to meet his gaze. "They hate me," she whispered. "I am nothing to them." Varric turned, his face unreadable. "Good," he said. "Hate is easier to control than love." Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to shout at him, to curse him, to demand why he spoke such words, but all she could do was sink to the floor, her body trembling from cold and fear. The storm outside screamed, and inside her chest, another storm began to rise. Hours later, when the thunder finally faded, a knock came at the farmhouse door. Not the hard knock of soldiers, but a soft one, secret. The girl froze, but Varric moved to answer. On the step stood a human woman, her eyes sharp, her clothes wet with rain. She glanced once at the girl, then spoke in a whisper. "There will be escape soon," the woman said. "The rebellion rises with the next moons. We need her." Her finger pointed at the girl, her eyes burning with certainty. "She is the key. Bring her, or she will betray us all." Varric's golden eyes narrowed, his silence heavy as stone. The girl's breath stopped in her chest. The choice she had feared was now before her. Stay in the chains of the master, or flee into the fire of rebellion. And she knew whatever path she chose, betrayal would follow. The moons hung heavy in the sky, painted red by the storm that had passed. The land was quiet. Too quiet, the kind of silence that comes before a scream. The girl worked in the fields as always, but the air felt different. The humans around her moved with restless eyes, their hands shaking, their whispers sharp. Something was about to break, and she could feel it in her bones. That night, it began. Flames rose from the barns, spreading fast, devouring wood and metal alike. Humans poured into the fields with stolen weapons, shouting, crying, their chains broken at last. The rebellion had come like thunder, and there was no turning back. The sky glowed with fire and the ground shook with war. The girl stumbled back, her heart racing. She saw men she had known all her life, striking down alien guards with fury. She saw women throwing fire into the crops, burning the very food that had kept them alive. The air was filled with smoke and screams, and in the chaos she felt herself vanish. She was not a human among them, nor an alien above them. She was nothing. Then Varric appeared, his massive form cutting through the smoke, golden eyes blazing, voice deep like a drum. "Back to your huts," he roared. "This rebellion will end in blood." But no one listened. They rushed at him with blades and fire, and the girl saw, for the first time, fear flicker in his eyes. She grabbed his arm. Without thinking, "Run," she whispered. "They will kill you." But Varric shook her hand away, his voice cold. "If I fall as master of these lands, not as prey." The battle grew wilder, fire spreading across the fields like a living beast. Humans screamed war cries. Aliens shouted orders. The clash of metal shook the night. The girl stood frozen in the middle of it all, her body torn in two. Every human face she saw looked at her with hate. Every alien face looked at her with mistrust. Where could she stand when both sides wanted her gone? Then in the chaos, a boy she knew, the same boy who had once defended her, was struck down. His blood spilled into the soil, his body trembling, his eyes wide. She rushed to him, cradling him in her arms, tears mixing with the smoke. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you fight?" His lips moved weakly, and with his last breath he said, "For freedom." Her chest broke with pain, her tears falling like the rain from the storm before. The rebellion was not only fire, it was blood, and no matter who won, nothing would ever be the same again. Varric fought like a storm himself, his massive arms crushing weapons, his voice shaking the air. But he was outnumbered. Too many humans, too many flames. He stumbled, his skin cut, his golden eyes dimming. For the first time, the invincible master looked weak, and the girl felt something strange. Fear for him, not of him. In the smoke, a hand grabbed her wrist, pulling her away. It was the same human woman from the stormy night, her eyes sharp and wild. "Now is your chance," she hissed. "Come with us, escape. The rebellion needs you." The girl stared at her, her body frozen. Escape meant freedom, but freedom meant betrayal. If she left now, Varric would fall, and with him, perhaps every secret he carried. Her chest ached, torn between fire and chains. She looked back and saw Varric on his knees, his breath heavy, his blood dark on the soil. He raised his head, his eyes meeting hers through the flames, and in that burning gaze, she saw something she had never seen before. Not command, not anger, but a plea for her to choose. The woman pulled harder, shouting over the fire, "Choose now, girl, or die with him." The girl's heart hammered in her chest, her breath sharp. Two worlds pulled her apart, The humans rising in fury, the alien master falling in silence. And in that moment the whispers returned, louder than ever. Rise, humans. The night belongs to you. But another voice rose too, deeper, darker. One she did not understand. Stay, human, the fire is not only theirs. She clutched her head, the voices tearing her mind apart. The fire roared higher, the screams grew louder. And she knew. Her choice tonight would shape not only her fate but the fate of all. The fields burned, the barns fell. The blood of humans and aliens mixed in the soil. And in the center of it all stood the girl, trembling, torn, bound by two voices, one promising freedom, the other promising something greater, something unknown. Her tears fell into the dirt, her lips whispering words no one could hear, and the night of blood and fire swallowed her whole. The fields were burning, their blue glow swallowed by red fire. Smoke rose into the sky, covering the stars, choking the air. The screams of humans and aliens mixed together, the sound of war, the sound of an ending. And in the center of it all stood the girl, her body trembling, her heart breaking. Varric the master was on his knees, blood dark against his gray skin. His golden eyes burned weakly, yet they did not leave her. He had been feared, hated, obeyed. But now he was only a dying figure in the fire. Humans rushed past with weapons, shouting, "Kill him, kill them all." But she stood frozen, her chest torn between two worlds. The human woman's hand still gripped her arm, pulling hard. "Come now, girl," the woman hissed. "The rebellion needs you. He will fall. Let him die." Freedom was one step away, just one step into the fire and the crowd. But her eyes would not leave Varric's. He had spared her when he could have ended her, he had shielded her in silence. And though he was her captor, in his gaze she saw a truth. He was also trapped. The whispers rose inside her again, loud, endless. "Rise, humans, the night belongs to you." But there was another voice now, darker, deeper, hidden. "Stay, human, your fire does not belong, only to them." Her head spun, her breath sharp, her hands shaking. She felt as if the soil itself was demanding her choice. The humans pressed closer, their fury burning hotter than the flames. One man raised his blade, pointing at Varric. "This is the end of the master," he cried. "And she will burn with him if she stays." The crowd roared in agreement, their eyes full of hate. The girl's chest tightened, her tears hot. No matter what she chose, she would be marked forever. She looked at the woman, at the humans with fire in their hands. She looked at Varric, wounded yet unbroken, and then she looked at herself. A thief who had only wanted bread. How had she become the one who carried the weight of two worlds? Her lips trembled and she whispered, "Enough." She stepped between the humans and Varric, her arms wide, her body trembling. "No," she cried, her voice breaking but strong. "This blood will not be mine. This fire will not choose for me." The crowd froze, shocked. The woman spat. "You are mad, girl. You betray your own kind." The girl shook her head, tears streaming. "I betray no one," she whispered. "I am human, but I will not kill to prove it." Varric's eyes widened, a faint light flickering within them. He pushed himself up, weak but still towering. "You stand between them and me," he said, his voice rough. "Why?" The girl looked at him, her voice trembling. "Because I am tired of chains, all chains, yours and theirs." The humans roared in anger, raising their weapons. But then the ground shook, a deep rumble tearing through the soil. From beneath the burning fields rose machines, old and hidden, glowing with strange power. The whispers grew deafening, no longer only in her head. They filled the air, echoing across the land. "Rise, rise, the time has come." The humans fell silent, their rage replaced by fear. The aliens froze, their eyes wide, and the girl realized the truth. The whispers had not only been hers. The land itself, the machines buried deep, had been waiting for someone, not alien, not master, but human, and she was the one who had heard them. She stepped forward, the fire reflecting in her eyes. "I will not be your slave," she cried to Varric. "I will not be your tool." She cried to the humans. Her voice rose above the flames, stronger than thunder. I will be the choice you all fear. The machines answered, their light spreading, their power shaking the sky. The humans dropped their weapons. The alien stepped back. Varric stared at her and for the first time bowed his head. You are not mine, he whispered. You never were. The fire began to die, the smoke fading, the rebellion stilled, the war frozen in her shadow. The girl stood tall in the burning field, no longer a thief, no longer a slave. She was something new, something both sides would have to face. The night ended with silence, the silence after a storm. Humans and aliens both looked at her, their hatred mixed now with fear. Varric rose weakly at her side, his golden eyes softer. You have changed the path of this world, he said, his voice heavy. She closed her eyes, her tears falling into the ash. I only wanted to live, she whispered, but her choice had made her more than a survivor. She was the spark that neither humans nor aliens could control, and as dawn broke, painting the sky gold and red, the girl walked forward into the future, not as a slave, not as a traitor, not as a master, but as the bond between two worlds. Her story, once of hunger and theft, had become the story of a fire that would never die,